"I'll give you 150K if you can fly that." They laughed at her for being a woman at the airport until the plane took off. Amanda Wilson never imagined that at 38 years old, after 2 decades of flying and over 10,000 flight hours, she would be humiliated in the worst possible way at Denver's executive airport. But that's exactly what happened when Richard Thompson, a businessman known for his arrogance, made an offer that echoed through the crowded terminal. "I'll give you $150,000 if you can pilot that jet over there," he said, pointing to a gleaming aircraft while laughing with the other men around him. "But I doubt a woman has what it takes to handle a machine that size." The laughter of the onlookers cut through Amanda's heart like sharp blades. She clutched tightly the folder containing the medical records of her 12-year-old daughter, Emily, who had been hospitalized in critical condition for 3 weeks. The money Richard was offering was exactly what she needed to start the experimental treatment that could save her daughter's life. Amanda took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every gaze on her impeccable pilot's uniform. The 4 golden stripes on her shoulders represented years of dedication, sacrifice, and skill, but in that moment, they seemed worthless to those men. "Are you serious?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite the tension. "Dead serious," Richard replied, pulling out a wad of cash from his pocket and waving it in the air. "But first, I need to see if you're actually licensed for this. Anyone can wear a fancy uniform, right?" The other men laughed even louder. Amanda felt her blood boil, but she thought of Emily hooked up to machines in the hospital. That morning, her daughter had asked when she'd come home, and Amanda couldn't bring herself to say she might never return if she didn't get the money for treatment. "I'll show you my credentials," she said, opening the folder and pulling out her aviation license. Richard took the documents and began examining them with exaggerated theatrics as more people in the airport stopped to watch. Some even started recording on their phones, making Amanda even more uncomfortable. Seems legit," he muttered, feigning surprise. "But anyone can fake paperwork these days. What really matters is seeing you in action." It was then that Amanda noticed a familiar figure watching from a distance. Diane Roberts, her former flight instructor, and now the head of the airport's control tower. The two hadn't spoken in years, not since Amanda had become a more respected pilot than her mentor. Diane could have stepped in to stop the humiliation, but she simply crossed her arms and kept watching with a cold expression. Amanda realized she was on her own. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked, trying to maintain her dignity. "Simple," Richard replied, tucking the money back into his pocket. "You take me to Chicago in my private jet, prove you can actually fly it, and I'll pay you the 150K on the spot. But if you fail, not only do you get nothing, it'll also prove women aren't cut out for handling aircraft this size." Amanda looked at the jet he'd pointed to. It was a modern executive model, similar to dozens she'd flown throughout her career. Technically, it shouldn't have been a problem. "I accept," she said, extending her hand. Richard hesitated for a second, as if he hadn't expected her to agree. Then he shook her hand with an overly firm grip, another attempt to assert dominance. "Perfect," he said, "but there are a few conditions I haven't mentioned yet." Amanda felt a chill in her stomach. She knew there was a catch, but she was too desperate to back down now. "What conditions?" "First, you'll use the co-pilot I assign. Second, you'll follow exactly the route I determine. And third, I'll be filming everything for a documentary I'm making about aviation. Think you can handle the pressure?" Amanda's heart raced, but she nodded. She needed that money, no matter the cost. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. Amanda followed Richard to the aircraft, feeling the curious and even spiteful stares of the other passengers. The businessman walked with arrogance, gesturing and speaking loudly to ensure everyone paid attention to the spectacle he was creating. As they approached the jet, Amanda began her routine external inspection. It was a procedure she'd done automatically for years, checking every detail of the fuselage, wings, and engines. That's when she noticed something odd. "This aircraft has unauthorized modifications," she said, pointing to visible alterations in the hydraulic system. "They're upgrades I had installed," Richard replied dismissively. "You don't have the technical expertise to understand." Amanda knew he was lying. Those modifications weren't just dangerous, they could make the flight extremely risky. But Richard kept talking, ignoring her concerns. "Oh, and I forgot to mention something important," he said, pulling out his phone. "You know Hope Memorial Hospital, don't you?" Amanda's blood ran cold. That was exactly where Emily was being treated. "How do you know where my daughter is?" "I own the hospital," he answered with a cruel smile. "And I can guarantee her treatment will be suspended immediately if you refuse my challenge now." Amanda felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. She was being blackmailed in the lowest way possible. Richard had planned everything down to the last detail, using a mother's desperation to feed his sick ego. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I can and I will," he said, showing his phone screen. "One call from me and the doctors get orders to stop all procedures. The choice is yours, Amanda. Either accept my challenge or your daughter loses her treatment." At that moment, Amanda understood she had no real choice. She was being manipulated by a man who used his power to humiliate women. But Emily depended on her, and that was all that mattered. "Fine," she said, swallowing tears of anger. "I'll fly your damn plane." "Excellent," Richard replied. "Now, let's meet your co-pilot." He waved over a young man who hurried toward them. He looked barely 20 and wore a uniform that clearly didn't fit right. "This is my son, Ryan. He'll be your co-pilot today." Amanda looked at the boy and immediately realized he lacked experience. His hands trembled nervously, and he avoided eye contact. "How many flight hours does he have?" she asked. "That doesn't matter," Richard cut in. "He's licensed, and that's enough." Amanda sighed. The situation kept getting worse. Not only would she have to deal with an irregularly modified aircraft, but also an inexperienced co-pilot who was probably there to sabotage her. As she continued the external inspection, one of the airport mechanics discreetly approached. It was Frank, a man around 60 who had always treated Amanda with respect and admiration. "Amanda," he whispered, pretending to check something on the landing gear. "I need to warn you about something." "What is it, Frankie?" "That guy's done the same thing to other female pilots. It's like a sick hobby of his, humiliating women in aviation." A mix of anger and determination surged in Amanda's chest. It wasn't just about the money or about Emily. It was about all the women who had been humiliated by men like Richard. And the others, what happened? Some gave up before even taking off. Others tried, but he always finds a way to sabotage them, whether through the co-pilot, the route, or conveniently discovered mechanical issues at the last minute. Frank looked around to make sure no one was listening and then continued. "There's one more thing. I found this stuck in the maintenance compartment this morning." He discreetly handed a small folded note to Amanda. She opened it and quickly read, "Hydraulic system compromised. Irregular pressure. Be careful." "Who left this?" "I don't know, but you can be sure someone is trying to warn you about sabotage." Amanda tucked the note into her pocket and continued the inspection with even more attention. If there really was a problem with the hydraulic system, she needed to find it before takeoff. Just then, her phone rang. It was a call from the hospital. "Hello? Amanda? It's Dr. Catherine. I need to speak with you urgently about Emily's treatment." Amanda's heart raced. "What happened? Is she okay?" "Physically, she's stable, but I just got a very strange call. Someone said the payment for the treatment was suspended and that we should stop the procedures immediately." Amanda glanced at Richard, who was animatedly talking to other men and gesturing in her direction. The scoundrel had followed through on his threat. "Doctor, please, don't stop anything yet. I'll resolve this today." "Amanda, you need to understand that without payment guarantees, I can't continue the experimental treatment. It's hospital policy. Give me until the end of the day, please." "All right, but only until 6 this evening. After that, I'll have to suspend everything." Amanda hung up and closed her eyes for a moment, trying to calm herself. She checked the clock. It was 2 in the afternoon. She had 4 hours to win that humiliating bet and save her daughter's life. "Any problems?" Richard asked, approaching with that cynical smile. "None," she replied curtly. "Let's get this over with." "Perfect. But first, there's one small change to the plan." Amanda took a deep breath, trying to stay patient. "What change?" "I've raised the bet to $200,000, he said, waving a thick envelope. "But now you'll have to prove your competence in front of a larger audience." Amanda looked around and noticed more people had gathered. Some were other pilots from the airport, clearly curious to see if she could handle the pressure. Others seemed to be Richard's friends, all well-dressed men who laughed and muttered comments under their breath. "Gentlemen," Richard called out to the small crowd, "place your bets. How many of you believe our pilot here can fly the jet to Chicago without a hitch?" Amanda's face burned with shame as she realized the men were literally betting money against her. Most seemed convinced she'd fail. "This is ridiculous," as she muttered. "It's just business," Richard replied. "And speaking of business, there's one more thing you should know. I'm recording all of this for a documentary I'm producing about the risks of putting women in command positions during high-stakes situations." Amanda looked at the camera an assistant was setting up and wanted to run, but the image of Emily in the hospital kept her steady. "Can I at least review the route details now?" she asked. "Of course," Richard said, handing her a paper. "It's simple. Denver to Chicago, passing through some specific coordinates I've marked." Amanda scanned the paper and immediately saw the proposed route was deliberately complicated. Instead of taking the most direct and safe route, she would pass through areas known for severe turbulence and heavy air traffic. "This route doesn't make sense," she said. "There are much safer ways to get to Chicago." "But wouldn't that be too easy, don't you think?" he replied. "Any mediocre pilot can follow a simple route. I want to see if you have what it takes to handle more complex situations." Amanda knew she was being deliberately tested beyond reason, but she had no choice. She nodded and headed to the aircraft. As she climbed the steps to the cockpit, she heard more spiteful comments from the men watching. Some openly said she wouldn't last even an hour in the air. Others laughed and claimed women were too emotional under pressure. "Breathe, Amanda," she told herself. "You've flown in much worse situations. Everything will be fine." But when she entered the cockpit and saw Ryan, the co-pilot, her hopes sank even lower. The young man was sweating bullets, and his hands trembled visibly as he tried to adjust the instruments. "First time as a co-pilot?" she asked, trying to be kind. "No, I've flown a few times," he replied, but his voice shook as much as his hands. "Ryan, I need you to be honest with me. How many flight hours do you really have?" The young man lowered his eyes. 220. Amanda sighed. It was far too little for a flight that was already being sabotaged from the start, but maybe she could use him to shield herself from Richard's manipulations. "Listen," she said, settling into the captain's seat. "I don't know what kind of instructions your father gave you, but I need your help today. Not just to win this ridiculous bet, but because lives could depend on it." Ryan looked at her in surprise. "Lives?" Amanda hesitated about whether to mention Emily, but decided she needed his cooperation. "I have a 12-year-old daughter in the hospital. She needs a very expensive treatment, and the money from this bet is the only way to pay for it. I know your family doesn't like me, but you can help me save a child's life." Ryan's expression changed completely. The tension gave way to genuine compassion. I didn't know," he said. "My father just told me to make you nervous during the flight, but I don't want a child to suffer because of this." Amanda felt immense relief. At least she'd have an ally in the cockpit. "Thank you," she said. "Now let's do this pre-flight inspection right." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now back to the story. As Amanda methodically checked every instrument, Ryan watched in silence. She noticed he was genuinely paying attention to her procedures, unlike the mocking attitude she'd expected. "Why did you agree to be part of this?" she asked while verifying the flight controls. "Honestly?" Ryan sighed. "My father said if I didn't help prove women are incompetent pilots, he'd cut my aviation school funding. And do you believe that? That women are incompetent?" Ryan stayed quiet for a moment before answering. "My first instructor was a woman. She taught me more in 3 months than any male instructor did in a whole year. So no, I don't believe it. Amanda smiled for the first time since arriving at the airport. What was her name? Jennifer Parker. Do you know her? Amanda's heart raced. Jennifer had been her classmate in aviation school and one of the best pilots she knew. Yes, I do. She's an excellent professional. What happened to her? She quit teaching after a horrible situation that happened right here at this airport. Someone did almost the same thing my father's doing to you. They humiliated her so much that she never wanted to fly professionally again. Amanda felt a sharp pain in her chest. How many competent women had given up their careers because of men like Richard? I won't give up, she said firmly. Not just for my daughter, but for all the women who were humiliated and quit. Ryan nodded. I'll help you. For real. It was then that Amanda noticed a problem with the instruments. The hydraulic system indicators showed irregular pressure, exactly as the anonymous note had warned. Ryan, did you see anyone tampering with this aircraft earlier? Yeah, I did. Some mechanics were here, but my dad said it was just routine checks. Amanda knew they weren't routine checks. Someone had deliberately compromised the system, making the flight dangerous. But if she didn't take off, she'd lose the bet and Emily would go without treatment. I can fly with a compromised hydraulic system, she thought. I've done it before in emergencies. She finished the pre-flight check and prepared to call the control tower for takeoff clearance. That's when Richard boarded the plane. All set? He asked with that mocking tone. Almost, Amanda replied. Just need clearance from the tower. Oh, about that, Richard said. There might be a slight delay. Seems there's an issue with your license in the system. Amanda's blood ran cold. What kind of issue? Nothing serious. Just a temporary suspension that popped up today. Very strange, don't you think? It was sabotage after sabotage. Amanda grabbed her phone and called the licensing authority directly. Hello, this is Amanda Wilson, registration 47829. I'd like to verify the status of my license. One moment, please, the operator replied. Your license is fully valid. There are no restrictions or suspensions. Amanda smiled and showed the phone screen to Richard. Looks like the system issue was temporary. Richard's expression shifted slightly. He clearly hadn't expected her to check so quickly. Glad it's resolved, he said, trying to keep his composure. Then we can take off. Amanda turned on the radio to the control tower. Denver Tower, this is private jet PTXYZ, requesting takeoff clearance. The voice that responded was familiar. It was Diane, her old instructor. PTXYZ, stand by. There's priority traffic on the runway. Amanda knew it was a lie. There was no traffic on the runway at that moment. Diane was deliberately delaying takeoff. Tower, I have limited fuel and a passenger on a tight schedule, Amanda pressed. Negative PTXYZ, stand by for instructions. Amanda checked the clock. It was already 3:15 p.m. Time was slipping away, and she hadn't even taken off yet. Then she overheard a radio exchange between Diane and another aircraft. Tower, this is Executive Flight PTABC requesting immediate takeoff. PTABC cleared for immediate takeoff, runway 09. Amanda realized other aircraft were being cleared normally, only she was being blocked. Denver Tower PTXYZ has been waiting for clearance for 15 minutes. What's the reason for the delay? There was a long pause before Diane responded. PTXYZ, technical issue in the tower is being resolved. Stand by. Amanda knew it was a lie, but there was nothing she could do but wait. Richard seemed to be enjoying the situation. Bureaucratic troubles? He asked sarcastically. Maybe it's a sign you shouldn't be flying at all. Amanda ignored the jab and kept monitoring the radio. Then she heard a different voice on the tower frequency. Attention Denver Tower, this is the operations supervisor. All clearances are to be processed normally. No technical issues reported. Amanda smiled. Someone at the airport had noticed what was happening and was intervening. PTXYZ, came Diane's reluctant voice. Cleared for takeoff, runway 09, wind 180 degrees, 10 knots. Roger, Tower, PTXYZ taking off. Amanda powered up the engines and began taxiing to the runway. She could feel the weight of everyone's eyes as they gathered to watch the spectacle. Some were filming with their phones, others making comments she could imagine even without hearing. "Ryan," she said, "during takeoff, I want you to monitor all instruments. If anything's out of the ordinary, tell me immediately." "Understood," replied the young man, now fully focused. Amanda positioned the aircraft at the runway threshold and performed a final instrument check. The hydraulic system still showed irregular pressure, but was within minimum flight parameters. "Ready for takeoff," she radioed. "PTXYZ, cleared for takeoff." Amanda pushed the throttles forward and began her takeoff roll. The plane quickly gained speed, and she pulled back on the yoke at just the right moment. The jet climbed smoothly, leaving the airport behind. "Perfect takeoff," Ryan remarked, clearly impressed. Amanda smiled. The first part of the challenge was done. Now she had to handle the complicated route Richard had planned and the mechanical issues that would surely arise during the flight. Denver Tower, PTXYZ, passing 3,000 feet, proceeding to authorized route points. "Roger, PTXYZ, contact Chicago Control on frequency 125.4. Amanda changed the radio frequency, but when she tried to reach Chicago, all she heard was static. "Chicago Control, this is PTXYZ, passing 5,000 feet. Nothing, just radio noise." "Ryan, try reaching them." The co-pilot tried several times, but the radio was clearly malfunctioning. More sabotage, Amanda thought. "They're cutting me off from air traffic control." Richard, who was seated just behind the cockpit, leaned in. "Any problems?" he asked with feigned concern. "Radio's out," Amanda replied. "I'll have to use emergency communication procedures." "How interesting," Richard said. "Just when you need to prove your competence, the equipment starts failing." Amanda ignored the jab and began using old visual signals to communicate with other aircraft in the area. It was a technique she'd learned years ago, one few modern pilots mastered. "Impressive," Ryan murmured. "Where'd you learn that?" "Old school," Amanda answered. "When you learn to fly without relying just on technology, you're ready for anything." For the next 20 minutes, Amanda navigated using only visual instruments and her experience. Ryan watched her every move with growing admiration. "My father was wrong about you," he said quietly. "He was wrong about all women pilots," Amanda replied. "But it's easier to blame gender than admit some people are just better than others." Just then, they reached the first marked coordinate on the route. Amanda quickly realized why Richard had chosen that specific point. It was an area known for severe turbulence. "Ryan, prepare for heavy turbulence. Check all seatbelts back there." "Turbulence?" Richard asked, and for the first time, Amanda detected real nervousness in his voice. "Part of the route you picked yourself," she answered. "Or didn't you know this region has weather issues?" Of course he knew. He'd chosen it deliberately to increase the difficulty and her chances of making a mistake. The plane began shaking violently as it entered the turbulence. Amanda maintained firm control, using advanced techniques to minimize passenger discomfort. Ryan held tightly to his seat, but continued monitoring the instruments as she had asked. "Hydraulic system pressure dropping," he reported. "How much?" "Pressure at 60% and falling." Amanda knew that in just a few minutes, she would be flying with a compromised hydraulic system. That was exactly what whoever had sabotaged the plane wanted, to create a real emergency situation that could be used to prove she was incompetent. "Richard," she said, turning around, "I'll need to make an emergency landing in Boulder. The hydraulic system is failing." "No way," he replied, gripping his seat. "The deal was to get to Chicago. If you land before then, you don't get the money." Amanda couldn't believe what she was hearing. Even in a real emergency, he was more concerned about his stupid bet than everyone's safety. "Sir, this is a safety issue. I can fly with a compromised hydraulic system, but it's not advisable with passengers on board." "You said you were competent," he taunted. "Now at the first sign of trouble, you want to quit. Typical woman." Amanda felt intense fury rising inside her, but she controlled herself. She thought of Emily in the hospital depending on that $200,000. "Fine," she said. "We'll go to Chicago, but when we get there, I want my money immediately." "If we get there," Richard replied with a cruel smile. Amanda activated the manual backup controls and continued flying toward the next point on the route. It was much harder to control the plane without hydraulic assistance, but she had enough experience to handle the situation. "Ryan, monitor our altitude and speed. I'll need all the information you can give me." "Understood. Altitude 8,500 feet, speed 280 knots, all stable." Amanda smiled. The young man was doing much better as a co-pilot than she'd expected. Maybe he'd inherited some natural talent from his father, even if Richard was a terrible person. It was when they reached the second marked point on the route that Amanda looked outside and saw a formation of dark clouds approaching. "Unpredicted storm," she said. "I'll have to divert." "No," Richard said. "The route is exactly the one I marked. No changes." "You want me to fly straight through a storm with a compromised hydraulic system?" Amanda asked, incredulous. "I want you to prove you're as competent as you claim." Amanda looked at Ryan, who was pale with fear. She glanced back and saw Richard was nervous too, but trying to maintain his arrogant posture. "Fine," she said. "But if anything happens, the responsibility is entirely yours." "Agreed," Richard replied, though his voice trembled slightly. Amanda flew straight into the storm. Lightning lit up the cabin, and the wind rocked the plane with tremendous force. Without the hydraulic system working properly, controlling the aircraft demanded all her physical and mental strength. "Hydraulic pressure at 40%, Ryan reported. "Altitude fluctuating between 8,000 and 9,000 feet, he continued, speed varying wildly. Amanda used every technique she'd learned in 2 decades of flying to keep the plane steady. It was one of the most difficult flights of her career, but she was determined not to give in. Then something unexpected happened. A lightning strike hit the plane, causing a temporary overload in the electrical systems. "We've lost primary instruments," Ryan shouted over the noise of the storm. Amanda looked at the panel and saw half the instruments had stopped working. Now she was flying almost blind in a storm, with a compromised hydraulic system and no communication with air traffic control. "Richard," she yelled, "do you still think we should keep going?" When she turned back, she saw the businessman was completely terrified. He clung desperately to his seat, his face white with terror. "Do something," he shouted. "Get us out of here." "I thought you wanted me to prove my competence," Amanda replied, maintaining control of the aircraft even in the chaotic situation. "Forget the bet," Richard yelled. "Just get us out of here alive." Amanda smiled. Finally, he had admitted he was scared and needed her skills to save them. She used updrafts to gain altitude and escape the worst of the storm. It was an advanced technique few pilots mastered, but it worked perfectly. Within 15 minutes, they were out of the storm and flying in clear skies again. "Electrical systems returning to normal," Ryan reported. "Instruments functioning. What about hydraulics? Pressure at 35% and stable." Amanda knew she could make it to Chicago with that pressure, but landing would be challenging. "Ryan," she said, "I need you to do something for me." "Sure. Turn on this recorder and capture everything your father is saying right now." Ryan hesitated for a moment, glancing at Richard, who was still visibly shaken by the storm. "Why?" "Because he humiliated me in front of dozens of people, sabotaged this aircraft, blackmailed me using my sick daughter, and now he needs to take responsibility for all of it." Ryan discreetly turned on the recorder. "Richard," Amanda said loudly, "would you mind repeating what you just asked me during the storm?" I just asked you to get us out of there," he replied, trying to regain his composure. "Oh, but you said more than that. You told me to forget the bet because you were scared, didn't you?" Richard stayed silent. "And admitted you needed my skills to save us?" "I didn't," he started, but Amanda cut him off. "Ryan, you heard everything. Want to tell the recorder what your father said?" The young man looked at his father, then at Amanda. For the first time, he seemed to make his own decision. "My father said, forget the bet, just get us out of here alive," he repeated into the recorder. "And he also said he trusted her skills to save us." Richard turned red with anger, but he couldn't deny what had happened. Amanda continued flying toward Chicago, using favorable wind currents to save fuel and further demonstrate her expertise. With every precise maneuver, Ryan made admiring remarks that were recorded. "How did you know there was an updraft there?" the co-pilot asked. Experience, Amanda replied. After 20 years of flying, you learn to read nature's signs, not just the instruments. I've never seen anyone fly like that. Amanda glanced at Richard in the rearview mirror. He was silent, clearly embarrassed for panicking in front of his son. Ryan, she said, your father isn't a pilot, is he? No, he has a private pilot's license, but he's never flown in real emergencies. I see. And yet he thought he could judge my professional skills. Ryan didn't answer, but Amanda knew he understood the irony of the situation. As they approached Chicago, Amanda requested clearance to land at Midway Airport. That's when she discovered Richard had one more surprise in store. Chicago Control, PTXYZ requesting landing at Midway. PTXYZ, negative. You are not cleared for Midway. Proceed to Newark. Amanda knew Newark was much farther, and with their remaining fuel and compromised hydraulics, it would be far riskier. Chicago Control, I have a hydraulic emergency. Requesting priority landing at Midway. PTXYZ, negative. Orders from above. Proceed to Newark. Amanda realized Richard had used his influence to make the situation even worse, but this time she was prepared. Chicago Control, I declare a formal emergency. Code 7700. Request immediate landing at the nearest airport. When a pilot declares a formal emergency, all other considerations become secondary. Air traffic control is required to give top priority. PTXYZ, emergency confirmed. Cleared for immediate landing at Midway, runway 17R. Firefighters and medical teams standing by. Amanda smiled. She had used her professional experience to overcome yet another sabotage attempt. What did you do? Asked Richard, nervous. I followed the proper emergency protocols, she replied. Things you learn when you have real experience, not just a private pilot's license. The final approach was tense. With only 30% hydraulic pressure, Amanda had to use manual techniques to control the plane during landing. It was the kind of situation that separated truly experienced pilots from amateurs. Landing gear down and locked, reported Ryan. Flaps in landing position. Approach speed 160 knots. Amanda maintained absolute focus during the final meters. The plane touched down with perfect smoothness, as if nothing were wrong. Perfect landing, shouted Ryan, clearly emotional. I've never seen anything like it. When the aircraft came to a complete stop, Amanda shut down the engines and turned to Richard. We've arrived in Chicago as you requested. Now I want my $200,000. Richard was clearly embarrassed but tried to maintain some dignity. You used emergency procedures. That wasn't part of the original agreement. I used emergency procedures because you sabotaged the aircraft, Amanda replied. Or do you think I don't know you were the one who ordered the hydraulic system to be compromised? I didn't, he began, but Amanda cut him off. Ryan, play the recording. Let's hear the part where your father admits he was scared and asked me to save you all with my skills. The sound of his own terrified voice echoed through the cabin. Richard had no way to deny it. That's when they heard sirens approaching. The firefighters and medical team were arriving to check on the emergency situation. Amanda, said Ryan, can I say something? Of course. You're the best pilot I've ever seen fly. My father was completely wrong, and I'm going to tell everyone. Amanda smiled and touched the young man's shoulder. Thank you, Ryan. You did an excellent job as co-pilot today. When they stepped off the aircraft, they found a small crowd waiting. It wasn't just firefighters and paramedics, but also reporters and some people who had followed the whole story from Denver Airport. How did you all get here so fast? Amanda asked. Someone filmed everything that happened in Denver and posted it on social media, replied one of the reporters. The story went viral. Everyone wanted to know if you could pull it off. Amanda looked around and saw far more support than she'd expected. Several people held signs with encouraging messages. Some were other women pilots who had come to show solidarity. Commander Wilson, said one of the women, stepping forward. I'm Jennifer Parker. I think you know my former student Ryan. Amanda immediately recognized the pilot Ryan had mentioned. She was the woman who had quit aviation after being humiliated. Jennifer, so good to see you. Ryan told me what happened to you. Well, I decided I won't let men like Richard destroy the careers of capable women, Jennifer said. I've been listening to everything on the control tower radio. You flew masterfully. Thank you, Amanda said, moved. That's when Richard tried to approach with the envelope of money, but there was something different in his demeanor. He seemed smaller, less arrogant. Amanda, he said, I want to pay you what I promised. And also, I want to apologize. Amanda looked at him in surprise. Apologize? You made me realize I was being unfair, prejudiced. You truly are an exceptional pilot. Amanda took the envelope, but didn't smile. Richard, your apology doesn't erase the humiliation you put me through, or the fact that you used my sick daughter to blackmail me. I know, he said, lowering his eyes, but I can do something to make up for it. Like what? Richard hesitated before answering. I'm willing to fully fund your daughter's treatment in addition to paying the $200,000, and I also want to make a donation to create a support fund for other families who need expensive treatments. Amanda was surprised by the offer but still wary. Why would you do that? Because my wife died 5 years ago in a plane crash, he replied, his voice breaking. The pilot that day was a woman, and I blamed her for the accident. But now I understand that accidents happen regardless of the pilot's gender, and that my prejudice was turning me into a horrible person. Amanda felt a pang of compassion, but wasn't ready to fully forgive. Richard, I accept your help for my daughter's treatment and for other families, but that doesn't mean I approve of what you did to me today. I understand, he said, and I hope one day you can forgive me. Ryan approached his father. Dad, I need to tell you something. I recorded our entire conversation on the plane. I have you admitting that Amanda saved us and that you were wrong about her. Richard looked at his son with a mix of surprise and pride. You did the right thing, son. Use those recordings however you want. I'll post them on social media, said Ryan. I want everyone to know that women can be exceptional pilots. Just then, Amanda's phone rang. It was the hospital. Amanda, this is Dr. Catherine. I have great news about Emily. Is she okay? Better than okay. The experimental treatment is working better than we expected. And I just got a very strange call from someone saying all the treatment costs have been fully covered. Amanda looked at Richard, who was talking to the reporters. He had kept his promise before she even reached the hospital. Doctor, can I visit my daughter now? Of course. She's been eagerly waiting to see you. Amanda hung up the phone and for the first time in weeks felt she could relax. Emily was saved. She had proven her professional competence, and there was a brighter future ahead. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. In the days that followed, Amanda's story spread across the country. Videos of the airport challenge, the storm she faced, and the perfect landing with a compromised hydraulic system went viral on social media. Amanda received hundreds of supportive messages from women of all ages. Many shared their own stories of workplace prejudice and said she had become an inspiration. A week after the incident, Amanda was at the hospital visiting Emily when she got an unexpected call. Captain Wilson, this is Michael Stevens, Operations Director at Skyway Airways. Amanda was surprised. It was one of the country's largest airlines. How can I help you? I'd like to speak with you about a job opportunity. We're creating a new pilot training program, and we'd like you to be the coordinator. I need to think about it. Of course, but I can tell you the salary is very attractive, and you'd have full autonomy to develop the training methods. Amanda hung up the phone, overwhelmed with emotion. After years of flying as a freelancer, I finally had a real opportunity to grow in my career. Mom, said Emily from the hospital bed, you look happy. I am, my dear, very happy. Is it because of the money you won? Amanda thought for a moment before answering. No, Em, because of something much more important. I learned that I should never give up on my dreams, no matter what others say. And will I get better? Yes, my dear. The doctors said the treatment is working perfectly. Amanda spent the rest of the afternoon at the hospital, talking with Emily about their plans for the future. The girl was visibly better, with more color in her cheeks and more energy. Mom, when I grow up, can I be a pilot like you? You can be anything you want, Em. A pilot, a doctor, an engineer, whatever your heart desires. And if anyone says you can't, you show them you can. That night, Amanda had an unexpected visitor at home. It was Frank Miller, the airport mechanic who had tried to warn her about the sabotage. Amanda, I came here to tell you something important. What is it, Frankie? I found out who left that note about the hydraulic system. Amanda was curious. Who was it? It was Diane Roberts. Amanda was shocked. Diane. But she didn't even speak to me at the airport. She was ashamed. She told me she always admired you as a pilot, but her pride wouldn't let her admit it. When she saw what Richard was planning, she decided to help you anonymously. And why didn't she help me openly? Because she'd also been humiliated by men like Richard, and it left her afraid to expose herself again. Amanda grew thoughtful. Where is she now? At home, probably. She resigned from the control tower after what happened. Resigned, why? Because the supervisor found out she tried to delay your takeoff. Even though she explained she helped afterward, he thought it was improper procedure. Amanda felt bad. In a way, Diane had sacrificed her own job to try to protect her. Frankie, do you have her address? The next day, Amanda went to Diane's house. It was a modest home in a middle-class neighborhood in Denver. When she rang the doorbell, a woman around 55 answered. Amanda, Diane said, clearly surprised. Can I come in? We need to talk. Diane invited her inside. The house was cozy, with several photos of planes and aviation certificates on the walls. I heard you lost your job, Amanda said. News travels fast, Diane replied with a sad smile. But I don't regret what I did. Why did you help me? We hadn't spoken in years. Diane sighed before answering. Because you were the best student I ever trained, and because I knew I'd been unfair to you out of pure envy. Envy? You got the career I always wanted. I became an instructor and then an air traffic controller because I never had the courage to face the prejudice you faced. When I saw Richard humiliating you, I saw myself 20 years ago, and this time I wanted to help. Amanda was moved. Diane, you were an excellent instructor. You taught me everything I know about flying. Not everything, Diane said. That technique you used in the storm, riding the updrafts, you developed that on your own. The two sat in silence for a moment, processing years of hurt and misunderstandings. Diane, I have a proposal for you, Amanda said. What kind of proposal? Skyway offered me a position as training coordinator. I'll need a team of experienced instructors. Would you work with me? Diane was surprised. You'd forgive me after everything that happened? I already have. And more than that, I want us to work together to train a new generation of pilots. Men and women, no distinction. I'd love to, said Diane with tears in her eyes. Then it's settled. We're going to transform aviation in the United States. A month later, Amanda was in Skyway's office in Chicago planning the new training program. Diane was by her side, reviewing the instruction manuals. Amanda, Diane said, there's a letter for you. Amanda opened the envelope and saw it was from Ryan, Richard's son. Dear Amanda, I hope you and your daughter are doing well. I wanted to tell you that I finished my aviation course and got my commercial pilot license. My first instructor was Jennifer Parker, who returned to teaching after being inspired by your story. My father has also changed a lot. He started a foundation that helps families with sick children, and he asked me to tell you he still feels ashamed of what he did, but he's trying to be a better person. I wanted to ask if you'd accept me as a student in your new training program. I want to learn to fly for real, like you did that day in the storm. Thank you for showing me that skill has no gender. Ryan Thompson. Amanda smiled and showed the letter to Diane. What do you think? She asked. I think he deserves a chance. After all, he was brave enough to record his own father admitting he was wrong. Then let's give him that chance. 6 months later, the training program led by Amanda was considered one of the best in the country. They had trained over 100 pilots, half of them women. Amanda was at Midway Airport supervising a flight exercise when she got a special call. Mom, it was Emily's excited voice, I just got home from school. "How was your day, sweetheart?" "Great. The teacher asked everyone to share what their parents do. When I said you're a pilot, everyone was impressed. And guess what Olivia said?" "What?" "She said when she grows up, she wants to be a pilot too, because if my mom can do it, so can she." Amanda smiled, her heart warmed. "And what about you, Em? Still want to be a pilot?" "Yes, but I also want to be a doctor, to help other kids like the doctors helped me." "You can be both, sweetheart. You can be anything you want." After hanging up, Amanda looked at Chicago's blue sky. Planes took off and landed constantly, each flown by skilled professionals, men and women who had dedicated their lives to mastering the art of flight. She thought of all the women who had given up on aviation because of prejudice. She thought of those still fighting to prove their competence every day. And she thought of girls like Emily, who would grow up in a world where being a woman pilot would be more common and accepted. "Commander Amanda," a voice said behind her. It was Ryan, now in his Skyway pilot uniform, having gotten a job after graduating from her program. "Hi, Ryan. How was your flight today?" "Perfect. And you know what? Today I flew with a female co-pilot for the first time. At first I was nervous, but then I realized she was way more experienced than me. I learned a lot." Amanda smiled. "And what did you learn?" "That you were right from the start. Skill has no gender. It's just about preparation, experience, and dedication." "Well said. Keep thinking like that, and you'll go far in aviation." Ryan walked away to prepare for his next flight, and Amanda kept watching the airport bustle. It was a beautiful late afternoon, with the sun beginning to set on the horizon. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jennifer Parker. "Amanda, I just got an offer to be head instructor at a flight school in Miami. I'm taking it. Thank you for inspiring me to come back. Together, we're changing aviation in the United States. P.S. I received 15 applications from girls for the pilot course this month." Amanda quickly typed a reply. "What wonderful news. I'm so proud of you. Let's keep opening the skies for all the women who dream of flying." At that moment, she heard the airport loudspeaker. "Attention, passengers of Flight 4567 to Washington, D.C. Immediate boarding at Gate 15. Captain Amanda Wilson and crew wish everyone a pleasant flight." Amanda smiled upon hearing her name announced. After months coordinating the training program, she had decided to return to commercial flying a few times a month. She loved the feeling of being at the controls, commanding an aircraft full of passengers who trusted her competence. She walked to Gate 15, where her crew was waiting. The co-pilot was a young man freshly graduated from her program, and the flight attendants were two experienced women she had known for years. "Ready for another flight, Captain?" asked the co-pilot. "Always ready," Amanda replied, adjusting her uniform. "Let's get our passengers safely to Washington, D.C." During the flight to Washington, D.C., Amanda reflected on everything that had happened over the past few months. The humiliation at Denver Airport had turned into a unique opportunity for personal and professional growth. She had saved her daughter's life, landed her dream job, reconciled with her former mentor, inspired other women to pursue their dreams in aviation, and even helped change the mindset of prejudiced people like Richard. When the plane landed in Washington, D.C., the passengers spontaneously applauded. It was something that rarely happened, usually only in special situations. "Why are they clapping?" the co-pilot asked. Amanda smiled. "I think it's because we flew well." In truth, she knew some passengers had recognized her. Her story had become nationally known, and many saw her as a symbol of resilience and professional excellence. As she exited the plane, an elderly woman approached her. "Captain Amanda?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. I wanted to thank you for everything you've done. I have a 16-year-old granddaughter who dreams of being a pilot but was always afraid because of prejudice. After she saw your story on TV, she decided to enroll in aviation school. You've changed my family's life." Amanda was moved. "I'm so happy to hear that. Tell your granddaughter she can achieve anything she wants as long as she never gives up." "I will. And I want you to know that you're a source of pride for all of us American women." Amanda thanked her and headed to the hotel where she would spend the night before her return flight to Chicago the next day. In her hotel room, She called Emily to ask about her day at school. "Mom, something funny happened today," the girl said. "What was it?" The geography teacher was talking about careers, and a boy in class said women can't be pilots because it's too dangerous. So I raised my hand and told your story. The teacher got so interested he asked if you could come to school and tell the whole class. Amanda laughed. "And what did you say?" "That you'd love to. Can I tell him you accept?" "Of course, sweetheart. It would be my pleasure." After hanging up, Amanda thought about how many children might be inspired by hearing her story. How many girls might decide to pursue careers they once thought impossible? How many boys might grow up without prejudices about women's abilities? The next morning, during the flight back to Chicago, Amanda received a call from Skyway's director. "Amanda, I have a special proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" "We want to create a national program to encourage women in aviation. Would you coordinate the project, visiting schools, universities, and events to inspire more women to enter the field? Would you be up for it?" Amanda thought for a few seconds. It was exactly the kind of work that would make sense for her at this point in her life. "I accept," she said. "When do we start?" "Next week. We already have 15 events scheduled in different states." Amanda hung up the phone excited. She had finally found her true calling. Not just flying, but inspiring other women to fly too. 3 months later, Amanda was in the auditorium of a university in Minneapolis, sharing her story with over 500 young students. She had already visited 12 cities and spoken to more than 5,000 people. "And what was the hardest part of this whole experience?" asked one student. Amanda paused before answering. "The hardest part wasn't flying through a storm or landing with a compromised hydraulic system. It was keeping my dignity when I was publicly humiliated. It was not giving up when it seemed like everyone was against me." "And what motivated you to keep going?" "Two things," Amanda replied. "First, my daughter needed me. Second, I knew that if I gave up, I'd be proving them right about women being weak, and I couldn't allow that." A young woman raised her hand. "Captain, I'm afraid to try aviation because my family says it's a man's profession. What would you tell me?" Amanda looked at the girl and saw a younger version of herself. "I'd say your family is wrong out of ignorance, not malice. Show them what you're capable of. Prove it through your actions, not your words. And remember, the sky has no gender." The audience erupted in applause. After the talk, several young women approached Amanda for advice and to exchange contact information. One of them stood out. "Captain, my name is Sarah. I'm 22 and just graduated with a degree in aeronautical engineering. I've always wanted to be a pilot, but I never had the courage to try. And why didn't you? Because in my town I'd never seen a woman pilot. I thought it was impossible. And now I'm signing up for aviation school next week." Amanda smiled and handed Sarah her business card. "When you're ready for advanced training, come find me. I'd be happy to help." On the flight back to Chicago that night, Amanda reflected on all the young faces she'd seen in the auditorium. Many of those girls would pursue careers in aviation because of the inspiration they had received. Others might not become pilots, but they'd carry the message forever that there are no limits to women's dreams. When she got home, she found Emily doing homework at the kitchen table. "How was the talk today, Mom?" "Really good, sweetheart. I spoke to over 500 young women about following their dreams." "And did they like it?" "I think so. Several said they're going to try aviation." Emily smiled. "You're kind of a hero now, huh, Mom?" Amanda laughed. "I'm no hero, Em, just a woman who didn't give up on her dreams." "To me, you are. And guess what? Olivia from my class said her dad knows your story. He's a pilot too, and he told her you're one of the best pilots in the United States." Amanda was surprised. "Really?" "Really. And he said if she ever wants to be a pilot, she can look up to you as proof that women can be just as good as men." That night before bed, Amanda received a text that moved her deeply. It was from Richard Thompson. "Amanda, today marks 1 year since that terrible day at Denver Airport. I want to take this moment to apologize to you once more and share some news. The foundation we created has already helped over 200 families with sick children. My son Ryan is becoming an excellent pilot, and always speaks of you with admiration. And I myself have tried to make up for the harm I caused by supporting other women in their careers. But most importantly, you made me realize I was wrong about everything. My wife would be proud to know I helped, even indirectly, a capable woman shine even brighter. Thank you for giving me a second chance to be a better person. Richard. Amanda was moved by the message. It was hard to completely forgive someone who had tried to humiliate her so cruelly, but she recognized his sincere effort to change. She typed a reply. Richard, I appreciate your words and acknowledge your sincerity. Keep helping others and being a better father to Ryan. That's how we build a fairer world for everyone. A year and a half after the airport incident, Amanda was in the hangar of the aviation school she had founded in partnership with Diane and Jennifer. It was a Saturday afternoon, and they were celebrating the graduation of the first class. 20 new pilots, 12 of them women. I never thought I'd see this day, said Diane, watching the graduates pose for photos with their certificates. Neither did I, Jennifer replied. When I gave up on aviation years ago, I thought I'd never have the courage to fly again. Now I'm here training a new generation. And the best part, Amanda said, is that these young people are growing up in a school where men and women are treated as complete equals. They'll carry that mindset wherever they work. Among the graduates was Sarah, the young woman Amanda had met at the lecture in Minneapolis. She had become one of the top students in the class. Commander Amanda, Sarah said, approaching with her certificate in hand, I wanted to thank you for inspiring me to take this path. You earned this on your own, Sarah. I just showed you it was possible. And now? What's next? The next step is for you to keep flying, gaining experience, and one day inspire other young women the way you were inspired. At that moment, Emily came running into the hangar. At 14, she had grown into a beautiful, intelligent teenager. The treatment had worked perfectly and she was completely cured. Mom, she shouted, I just decided what I want to be when I grow up. What is it, sweetheart? I want to be a doctor specializing in rare diseases to help other kids like me. And I also want to get my pilot's license so I can fly you around when you're old. Amanda laughed and hugged her daughter. You can be anything you want, Em. The world is yours. And you know what else? Emily continued. Olivia from my class actually enrolled in aviation school. She's starting next year. Amanda was touched. The girl who had been inspired by her story years ago was really pursuing her dream of becoming a pilot. When everyone had left and the hangar was empty, Amanda, Diane, and Jennifer stayed behind, talking about their plans for the future. How many schools like this do you think the United States needs? Jennifer asked. Many, Amanda replied. At least one in every state. And how many women pilots can we train each year? If we can inspire at least 1,000 young women a year to try aviation, and half of them graduate, that's 500 new women pilots annually. In 10 years, that would be 5,000, Diane calculated. 5,000 women flying across the skies of the United States, Amanda said, smiling. Imagine the impact that would have. They fell silent for a moment, contemplating the magnitude of what they were building. Amanda, Diane said, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Do you ever regret accepting that humiliating bet from Richard? Amanda thought carefully before answering. No. As painful as it was at the time, that day changed my life for the better. It made me discover my true calling, which isn't just flying but inspiring other women to fly too. What if you could go back in time and avoid that whole situation? I wouldn't. Because without that humiliation, I would never have discovered the strength I had inside me. And maybe thousands of other women would never have realized they could fly too. Jennifer smiled. So, Richard ended up doing a favor for women's aviation in the United States without even knowing it. Exactly, Amanda laughed. Sometimes what seems like our worst defeat can turn into our greatest victory. That evening, Amanda was at home preparing a presentation for an international aviation conference when she received an unexpected call. Amanda Wilson, said a woman's voice with a foreign accent. Yes, speaking. My name is Margaret Johnson. I'm the director of the International Association of Women Pilots. We're organizing our annual conference in Miami, and we'd like to invite you as the keynote speaker." Amanda was stunned. It was one of the most prestigious organizations in global aviation. "It would be an honor," she replied. "Your story has become known internationally. You've inspired women in many countries to pursue careers in aviation. We want you to share your experience with delegates from over 50 nations." After hanging up, Amanda looked out the window and saw a plane passing across the starry sky. She thought about how drastically her life had changed since that terrible day at Denver Airport. From a desperate freelance pilot trying to pay for her daughter's treatment, she had become an international figure in the fight for gender equality in aviation. 2 months later, Amanda stood on stage at the Miami conference facing over 1,000 women pilots from around the world. It was a historic moment for her. "My friends," she said into the microphone, "I want to tell you the story of how the worst humiliation of my life became my greatest achievement." For 40 minutes, she recounted everything in detail: the blackmail, the sabotage, the storm, the emergency landing, and most importantly, how she had used that experience to inspire thousands of other women. "The message I want to leave with all of you," she said, concluding her speech, "is that our competence doesn't need male approval. We don't fly to prove anything to men. We fly to fulfill our own dreams." The audience rose to their feet and applauded for 5 straight minutes. Many women were moved to tears. After the talk, dozens of pilots approached her to share their own stories of perseverance and prejudice. "Amanda," said a pilot from France, "your story reached us in Europe. I inspired my 16-year-old daughter to start flight lessons after seeing your TV interview." "Amanda," said an American woman, "I founded a flight school for women in Canada based on your model. We already have over 100 students." "Amanda," said a pilot from Japan in my country, "it's very hard for women to be accepted in aviation. Your story gave us the courage to keep fighting." Amanda was overwhelmed, realizing her experience had inspired women across continents. What began as personal humiliation had become a global movement. On the final day of the conference, she received a special award from the association, the Amelia Earhart Award for Inspiration in Women's Aviation. "This award," said the organization's president, "is given annually to the woman who has contributed most to inspiring others in aviation." This year, the choice was unanimous: Amanda Wilson from the United States. Amanda received the award with tears in her eyes, thinking of Emily, Diane, Jennifer, Sarah, and all the young women who would one day fulfill their dream of flying because of the inspiration they had received. On the flight back to the United States, Amanda reflected on everything she had achieved. Her aviation school was growing, dozens of other schools were opening across the country following her model, hundreds of young women were starting careers in aviation, and her own story had become an international symbol of perseverance. More important than all of that, Emily was healthy and preparing to take her college entrance exams for medical school. The girl who had nearly lost her life to a rare disease now dreamed of saving other children. When the plane landed at Newark Airport, Amanda saw a small crowd waiting. There were journalists, students from her school, and some people who simply wanted to congratulate her on the international award. "Captain Amanda," a reporter asked, "what's your next goal?" Amanda thought for a moment before answering. "My next goal is simple: to keep inspiring women to fly, literally in airplanes or metaphorically, in their lives. I want every girl in the United States to know there are no limits to their dreams." "And your message for young women who dream of aviation? Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. The sky belongs to everyone, regardless of gender. And if someone tries to humiliate you like they did with me, use that negative energy as fuel to fly even higher." 3 years after the incident at Denver Airport, Amanda was opening her 5th aviation school, this time in Atlanta. By her side were Diane and Jennifer, who had become her official partners in the National Expansion Project. "5 schools in operation," Diane said. "Over 500 women graduated, and another 1,000 in training. And most importantly," Jennifer added, "we've completely changed the perception of women in US aviation." Amanda looked at the new hangar, with its impeccable training planes and young students, men and women, preparing for their first flight lessons. "You know what?" she said. "I think I can finally say that humiliation was worth it." At that moment, her phone rang. It was Emily, now 17 and about to graduate high school. "Mom, I just got my college acceptance results." "And?" "I got into Harvard for medicine. First place." Amanda screamed with joy and hugged Diane and Jennifer. Her daughter had achieved her dream of becoming a doctor. "Congratulations, my girl. I'm so proud of you." "Mom, I want to thank you for everything. If you hadn't been brave that day at the airport, I probably wouldn't be alive today to celebrate this acceptance." Amanda was moved. "You deserve all the success in the world, Em. You're going to be a brilliant doctor. And you know what? I'm still going to get my pilot's license. I want to fly with you at least once in my life. It'll be an honor to share the cockpit with you." After hanging up, Amanda looked at the blue sky of Georgia. Planes were constantly taking off and landing, many of them piloted by women who had graduated from her schools. She had turned one of the worst experiences of her life into the greatest personal and professional achievement she could imagine. And best of all, she was certain this was only the beginning of an even greater transformation in US aviation. The end of the story. So, what did you think of this incredible story of perseverance? Amanda not only proved her competence, but inspired thousands of other women to pursue their dreams in aviation. Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you know any similar stories of women who faced prejudice in their professions. Your opinion means a lot to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.